In this week's Torah portion, every week we read from the Torah, we read a specific part of the Bible. In this week's Torah portion, we discuss the Exodus of Egypt, the beginning of the Exodus of Egypt. And right in the middle of the entire story, it stops, and all of a sudden it starts telling us about the lineage of Moshe. It starts telling us who Moses' parents were. And it says in Shmos, in chapter 6, paragraph 20, it says, "And Amram took Yocheved, his aunt, for a wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moshe." Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who's a great rabbi, has a very interesting question. He says, first of all, why are we doing this? And second of all, in the Torah portion before, last week's Torah portion, where coincidentally the name Basia is mentioned, we mention Moshe's parents, but what we say then is something very interesting. All we say is, and a man came from the house of Levi and married the daughter of Levi. All of a sudden, it's just very ambiguous who his parents are. And now, all of a sudden, it's giving us much more details. So the question we have to ponder is, why is it saying it again? And why is it this time giving us more details? And the reason is pretty poignant, and that is, when a baby is born, they are so full of potential. All they are is just a ball of potential. It would be ridiculous if a parent walked around and said, "Look at my 2-day-old baby. He is the smartest kid that ever walked the planet. He is the most kind individual. He's a 2-day-old baby. Maybe one day he would grow up to be." And that's the reason, a child is just the potential, and any person can have a baby. Well, later on in life, when the second Torah portion is taking place, Moshe is 80 years old. And at this point already, he has stood up for injustice, and he killed an Egyptian who was hurting a Jew, and he was chosen to be the leader of the Jewish nation. And now you see what the potential of this person became. Now you explain much more what the parents have done, because these parents have taken the potential of this human being and have created it into something so beautiful. And then we exalt the parents and we speak of them more. My grandmother was born in Soviet Russia in 1932. She too was just a ball of potential. She could have become anything, but what she became, as you can see, and anyone who's known her, she became the matriarch of our family, and she became a loving, caring person. She became so much, anyone who was friends with her knows that she would give, the shirt off her back if somebody needed it. And that's a true testament to her parents, Chai and Yefim, and her mother Raya, because clearly they took that ball of potential that was given and they made something incredible out of it. And I'm sure that when her soul came to heaven, they greeted her with open arms and with love, and they were so proud of the person that she had become. Many years ago, there was a difficulty in our family, and my grandmother took upon herself to light candles every Friday night for Shabbos. It was something that she had done regularly since then. And I found it very significant that this was the action she chose to take upon herself. Because what's interesting about a candle is that no matter how many other candles it lights with it, it never diminishes its own light. It could light thousands of other candles, but yet its own light stays the same. And that was my grandmother. She loved so many people that her love never diminished. I mean, the way she loved my brother and me, and later my sister-in-law and my husband, and then when the great-grandkids came, I mean, she loved every single one of them differently, uniquely in their own way. I mean, for my kids, she would sit there and tickle my son slowly until, he barely could breathe. And that was a special relationship with her. And my daughter, she would just, pet her head and tell her how beautiful she is. And my son Zevi, she came as often as she could to make borscht, because she was just too afraid that Zevi was getting too skinny. And without everyone, she was able to love uniquely and give over of her heart completely and utterly, and still not diminish her own light. And she was still able to love each and every one of them wholeheartedly. For me, this is hard because some of my best childhood memories involve my grandmother. She was the one to teach me how to push myself on the swings, though I think it just is because she didn't want to push me anymore. And she taught me how to ride a bike. And more than just, those things, I'm saddened because all of my memories from childhood just involve my grandmother in them. And I'm saddened that my memories of the future are not going to have her in it. But I feel blessed that I've had the past 27 years with her. And I'm more saddened for my children who, her life, they're going to remember only bits and pieces, and my baby's, not going to remember much, but we have our memories. And I'm saddened that my children are not going to have her in her life. There's a native proverb that says, "When you came into this world, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life in a way that when you die, the world is crying while you rejoice." Looking around, I can see that is more true of Ella than anybody else. she lived a life where we're sitting here and we're crying, but she did so much good in her life, and I know that she's staring down at us smiling. I'm so proud of who we are and who we became, and so proud of the family that she has, and so proud of the friends and all the good deeds she's done. She's surrounded by angels, and they're hovering around her, and it's sad for us, but I know that up in heaven she's smiling.